Thank you, Morgan. I always come up with a couple pieces of papers trying to be serious and just reading things to make sure that I stick to my 10 minutes, because people who know me, they know that I have a tendency to speak too much. And usually I also have a tendency to quickly forget about my notes anyway. And so I don't know whether I want to talk about the Swiss exchange program, which has been really running for several years, and which at least has changed my life. And I feel that I may have also changed a little bit of Morgan's life. I had some impact on it, and I hope I also did some contribution for ICSI. Actually, I have a little story about that, and I was hearing about this story about the 6th floor and 5th floor. I hope I'm not going to, because I already diverged from my notes there. But it's... I think I was at the origin of the first dispute, actually, between Morgan and Jerry, as I understood. I think it could have been, maybe it was the first, because I was here like 2 months before the official opening of ICSI. So as I was saying in my notes here, on September 5th, 1988, the date of my 32nd birthday, I was actually flying from Brussels to San Francisco to come here as a visitor. It would take far too long to explain why I was on that plane and why I was coming to this unknown place instead of going to Toronto University at that time. That would take hours to explain. But anyway, I ended up here, and Morgan was basically hired the same day than I was, except that I was officially hired by Jerry working on artificial intelligence, because I was recognized as a speech guy. So I was, the closest activity here was AI, so I was part of AI. And Morgan was starting a group called the Realization Group, and so he was on the 5th floor, I think. So the 5th floor was there very early. I was thinking about that. No?
No, you were on the 6th.
You were on the 6th? Okay, we are getting so old anyway. But all what I remember is that after a couple of weeks, of working independently of each other, we had lunch at some point, and Morgan realized that, okay, it would maybe be good to work with Herve. So he took the decision without asking you to move my office from next to your office or somewhere around here to another office, And he said, okay, let's work together. And we started working together. Anyway, so at that time I was working for Philips Research in Brussels, Belgium, which was not a sponsoring country, interestingly. But of course I had never thought that those 10 months of sabbatical leave at ICSI would change my life so much, resulting in 20 years so far, and it's only the beginning of very successful collaboration between Morgan and I, and ICSI and Switzerland and Belgium and European projects and so on that have been mentioned several times. What I liked about ICSI still today, and I hope we are going to find the right trade-off, and it's always because I experience the same thing with my own institute. So I'm professor at the now Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne, but director of my own IDIAP Institute, which is a kind of copycat of ICSI. I was also inspired by ICSI by trying to. I am always quite talented to get me into all kind of funny ventures, and that was yet another one. But anyway, so I was here for the official opening ceremony, I remember. And something that really I liked at ICSI was the lack of structure at that time. So the wild atmosphere, it was just wild, because it was open. It was new and it was very open-minded, and this is typical of a new institution. And this makes it so strong, usually. And that's why we decided suddenly to work together and come up with new ideas all the time. And I still remember this dynamism, which was here, flourishing and blooming every day. So after we decided to work more or less together, although we had no idea how to do it, Morgan told me, okay, just give a talk about what you are doing. And since there were no speech experts, he brought up all his friends from SRI up here, and I had to give a talk here on the 6th floor. And the conclusion of my talk, it was full of maths and theories and so on. Some people know what I am talking about probably now. But the conclusion was that, I'm sure it's right in theory, but there are no computers fast enough to prove that I'm right. So, and then a guy at the bottom of the room, Morgan, stood up and said, Herve, that's not an excuse here at ICSI. If there are no computers fast enough, that's not an excuse. We'll build one. So we started building a computer. Well, he did it, because I'm not a computer guy. I don't build computers, but there are people here. I'm sure that Morgan...
Jim Beck?
Yeah, Jim is here? Okay, Jim. Yeah, and Christy was not here yet, I think.
Not then,
no,
yeah.
but this was the RAP machine, ring array processor, and so this is Morgan and I in 1989. So 1.5 years basically after we decided to do it, it was there, you know, and up and running. Yeah. And so that collaboration kept blooming, you know, and expanding. And basically it turned quite quickly into a very natural and based on trust and friendship collaboration. Something that I always like, and we keep doing it actually each time we meet, is to systematically and automatically criticize each other's ideas. Each time we come up with a great idea, we do everything we can to kill the idea of each other. And this is something that I really learned here too, which is not typical of the European culture, where especially in Germany, where there is a high respect to German professors and so on. You know, students would never dare telling a professor that they are right. Here, actually, students dare saying that, and I think it's really, really great. And so here, I try to do the same thing in my own institute now, you know, forcing people to criticize me, as long as they accept me criticizing them too. And that's the tough part. And so it's not easy, but I succeeded to implement it at IDIAP too. And I'm very happy about what I have learned at IDIAP, what I call this collaborative competition. You know, is indeed something typical of ICSI, which I fully exploited, not always easily, in my home institution. Anyway, so this is thanks to our work. Basically, our success started really growing, you know, and we got more and more contracts. At some point, I was part of the permanent exchange visitor, so it was not clear whether I was in Belgium, you know, in universities or here. So each time Jerry was meeting me at the coffee break here, he had no idea whether I was a visitor here or whether I was just visiting for a day or whether I was here by mistake and so on. So he was just telling me, "Oh, what's your trip?" You know, and I was saying it was okay. And still today it's the case, although we are becoming more and more busy and we all look like a little bit like this, you know, and piling up paperwork and grant proposals and so on and so on. Anyway, then I had the chance to return back what I received from ICSI, because I really received a lot during the first 12 years. And during the last 12 years, I moved to Switzerland. And I worked immediately on reactivating the Swiss exchange program, which had died for several reasons, mainly admin reasons. And so I am very proud that I succeeded in reviving that Swiss exchange program, which has been running now for 8 years, I think, which is quite successful. And the way we revived it is in different contexts. Every country is leveraging on different instruments. In our case, it is something called an NCCR, National Center of Competence in Research. There are very few of them in Switzerland. These are like big projects, like 12 years projects, reviewed and renewed every 4 years. And we are now reaching the end of the second phase. So we still have 5 years to go. But end of this year, Morgan and I, we will start working together again, really working, and it's always a pleasure to work together on already a new NCCR proposal, so targeting 12 new years starting in 2010. So those projects so far, those exchange, so this project and exchange program, as part of it, is covering about 3-4 students visiting ICSI per year. And I can tell you, I had a quick chat with 2 of them yesterday during coffee break again. And even for those young kids, you know, they have been here for 3 months and they tell me already that ICSI has really changed their life. And they were very, very serious about it, you know. They were even wondering why we could even question stopping funding or something like that. And I had to explain them that life is not as easy as you can think of. And this is our work now as older people, you know, to make sure that funding keeps flowing into IDIAP and ICSI. Anyway, so this has been a great 20 years. I am very proud to have been a little bit part of it, but obviously this is all thanks to all the people we have heard earlier before, Jerry and certainly Morgan over the last 8-10 years. Mm-hmm. You know, there is also a little joke that I became director of this IDIAB Institute in Switzerland about, 12 years ago, exactly. And Morgan became director of ICSI 10 years ago.
Almost, yeah.
Almost 10 years ago. So I keep kidding Morgan a little bit, saying that usually directors talk only to other directors. So for 2 years we had to, I couldn't talk to Morgan very much. So I had to lobby a little bit here to make sure that I am joking here, that he could become a director. And so this was also another nice picture in 1994 where we were advertising our work. So this is the famous SPAM, for stochastic perceptual acoustic modeling, which is still on the market today in any good grocery store. You can find it. Okay, thank you very much.